Hey there everyone, AJ back again for the Mighty Glue Stick channel. A return to the Feywild, the land of fairy. Today we should cover the Quicklings. Originally invented by Lawrence Schick for the second monster manual, Quicklings are not, as alluded to in the 5th edition sourcebook Volo's Guide to Monsters, a completely separate Fey race. They are a breed of Brownie. So let's talk a bit about what a Brownie is exactly, since they're such an important species in relation to the blending of the dreamlike Feywild, the lands of fairy, with the relatively humdrum, drab, and predictable worlds of the prime material plane. A Brownie is possibly a distant relative of the Halfling, perhaps half Halfling, half Pixie, but it's smaller, far less common in the mortal world. They may be a reflection of the dreaming state of Halflings, or they may be the template that Halflings were created from originally, but it is not easily denied that there are more similarities than differences in their appearance, habits, and proclivities. A Brownie is a tiny elf, 1.5 feet tall. They wear well-fashioned, comfortable, brightly coloured garments, never drab, but certainly not foppish. Brownies are generally friendly to humans and their like. They are very shy and sneaky though. So while they may live quite close to humans, sometimes even sharing the same living spaces, they are rarely seen. A human may put the signs of a Brownie activity down to rats or go about setting traps that the Brownies will find quite interesting, if a little barbaric, even as they relocate the rodents to safer locations. Brownies have exceptionally keen senses and are nearly impossible to surprise, so they may make themselves scarce long before a blundering member of the big folk can stumble across them. They prefer to tend to gather in quiet farming communities, barns, lofts, cozy cottages. The dwellings of humans, gnomes, halflings, and elves are just lovely locations as far as Brownies are concerned. They show their gratitude and their quiet appreciation by helping out with small tasks around the household, like making repairs to wood or metal and things. In keeping with their shyness, they only work at night, and they only ever take things that they find difficult to gather for themselves, such as fresh cream, butter and cheese, baked bread crusts and such. They are easily offended, however, and would abandon a house if their own gifts were called payments, or if they were offered gifts of clothing. If that sounds familiar, perhaps you just realised that Dobby, the house elf, gaining freedom from a gift of clothing was not such an original idea after all. If encountered on friendly terms, Brownies can be convinced to help well-intentioned big folk. Brownies don't normally carry weapons other than short swords, which are useful for utility rather than for combat purposes. And Brownies have a small number of special powers, including the ability to cause confusion and employ other spells of a distracting or misleading nature. They also have a close relationship with all sorts of common pastoral and domesticated animals, and peaceful critters who live close by, such as hedgehogs and badgers. Quicklings, related directly to Brownies, are an altogether different story. Although they were much once like any other race of Brownie, Quicklings sought out dark and dangerous magical powers. It may be that they intended to do good with their powers at one time. This may have happened when they tried to master magic beyond their control, or might have happened when they were punished for stealing a rare magical book from an Archfey queen, or some combination of the two tales. The stories vary depending on who you ask. The 5th edition tale is certainly a possibility, I suppose. The lore has often stated that the Fey power responsible for their transformation was the Queen of Earrin Darkness. This lore predates Volo's Guide to Monsters as well, so there is precedent for it. So let's take a moment to find out who the Queen of Earrin Darkness actually is, shall we? The Queen of Earrin Darkness is the Fey deity of magic, especially illusions, darkness, and murder. Her long-lost true name is never spoken among the Fey. Her unholy symbol is a black diamond. The Queen of Earrin Darkness is a bodiless, invisible being, but she can be perceived magically as a fairy with pale, angular features and a mane of black hair if you see her in her invisible state. She is beautiful, but hers is a terrible, eldritch beauty that chills the bone. The Queen is cold and utterly emotionless. The Queen of Earrin Darkness is the sister of Titania, who once bright spirit is being corrupted and is now dead. Now she hates and opposes Titania's Seelie Court and everything they stand for. Because she embodies the corruption that can take root in the heart of the elvish race, Corellin Larathian, Erevan Ilisir, Rilifane Ralathil, Sahinine Moonbow, and Solinor Thelandira also consider her an enemy. The Queen's unseelie court can be found in the plane of Pandemonium. There the goddess rules from a throne of shadows. Her court is filled with evil, twisted fae, elves, and undead. Hellhounds and Yethhounds slaver at her insubstantial feet, and the Queen of Earrin Darkness is served by unseelie sprites, quicklings, evil elves, bramble fairies, among others, and the Queen of Earrin Darkness is blamed for the creation of all evil fae races, including quicklings, Falarans, and Spriggans. The plane of pandemonium doesn't quite sound like the Feywild now, does it? Well, we'll start to see that the boundaries of the Feywild are just as complex and far-reaching as those of the prime material worlds, and that it is truly parallel to the natural world, touching on the inner and outer planes of existence, which means Fey creatures can be found pretty much everywhere, including the lower planes and obviously the howling plane of pandemonium. The description of what Quicklings look like has changed with each new edition of Dungeons & Dragons. The first appeared in the original AD&D Monster Manual 2 and have appeared in every edition of D&D since. Most accounts describe them as small and slender, similar in proportion to elves, just a lot shorter, and they have blue skin, blue to pale white skin, and white hair, with large, sharply pointed ears and a kind of a feral look about their fine elfin faces, with thick and long eyebrows. The 4th edition redesign of their appearance is outlandishly different, but I see no reason why those grey-skinned, fanged and scary-looking versions could not also exist. Creatures of the Feydark, warped and twisted by thousands of generations in the service of those magical mutant giants, the Fomorians. So don't go throwing away all those old miniatures. The Quicklings are named for their speed, obviously, and as fast as they are, there is a hefty price in the shortness of their lifespan. Particularly compared to other Fey, a Quickling is old by the age of 12, and they never live past 15 years unless by magical means they've managed to have their lifespan expanded. Though, of course, there is undeath. Oh, I can just feel the ideas exploding in your mind with that little comment. Undead Quicklings! Quickling eyes are cold and cruel with a tiny spark of yellow light. They are very intelligent and keenly aware of their environment. Not book smart. Who has time to sit and read a book when you're as fleet as the wind? They mature less than a year after birth. By the age of 2, they are adult members of their society. They live in extended family units, with each group led by a more heroic, robust individual who is more akin to a folk hero than an elected leader. These charismatic elders call the shots because they're respected by others, but in a society with such a breakneck pace, social structures, politics, feuds and dramas can unfold in moments and end just as quickly. A change in their whole community can play out in a day of frenetic mayhem where there might be love, loss, murder, theft, betrayal, alliances and tragedy before any of the slow folk have any idea what's going on. And if you ask a Quickling about last year, it's very much like asking a human what happened a decade ago. Quicklings dwell in places that are dark and evil. They do this out of choice, not simply because they gravitate towards locations that are as grim and as corrupted as themselves, but because certainly there's spite and enmity which burns in their hearts, but it seems to be drawn to fell swamps, bleak and broken badlands and the like. They also dwell in such places because they're fast enough to avoid the dangers that lurk and prowl there. They prefer the isolation. Quicklings don't like the constant reminder of their mortality staring them in the face from those long-lived slow folk. They hate them, and they feel a perverse pleasure in the misfortunes that befall slow folk, whatever the source of it. But, of course, best of all is that when they're the source of their downfall, particularly the big, stupid humans and those detestable, lofty, arrogant elves, the longest-lived of all the slow folk, and what's more, the slowest of them all. As a rule, Quicklings avoid contact with the outside world except when it promotes their own evil ends. In some cases, they've been known to deal with evil races of magical creatures, like imps and quasits, or powerful evil wizards and priests. And on these occasions, the combination of such forces is a great danger to all beings in the area. From their poisoned and twisted lairs, the Quicklings hunt down the slowfolk and have their deadly sport with them. They are exceptional adept ventriloquists who use their skill to fool others into traps or other dangerous situations. Their speed is pretty phenomenal, but I don't think that Volo's Guide to Monsters really gets it. At first glance, a speed of 120 feet per round seems impressive. And bear in mind their blurred movement trait, okay, which makes all attack rolls against them suffer disadvantage unless the Quickling is incapacitated or restrained. And they're supposed to be so fast that they're moving faster than the eye can track, a blurry wavering in the air. So let's do the math on that speed. There are 10 rounds in 1 minute, 6 seconds in 1 round. So their normal movement speed is thus 20 feet per second. That's only 13.6 miles per hour. And if they spend an action to make a dash during that round, they move at 40 feet per second or 27.7 miles per hour. The maximum speed a world champion sprinter Usain Bolt reached was 27.8 miles per hour. And humans are a lot slower than many other land animals. So let's take a look at the Cheetah, which can reach a maximum of 75 miles per hour, which is 110 feet per second or 660 feet per round. That would obviously be the top dashing speed. So let's say 330 feet per round is the normal speed of a Cheetah. Now that, combined with the tiny humanoid size, is far more like a blur of movement. So let's say that their speed is 330 feet per round. They have a dexterity that is beyond incredible, a godlike 23. Their strength is a mere 4 points, but with the speed with which they move, it adds a lot of penetration to their strikes with the slender daggers that they use. In combat, they make full use of their evasion ability, which states if a Quickling is subjected to an effect that allows it to make a dexterity saving throw to only take half damage, instead they take no damage at all if it succeeds on the saving throw, and only half damage if it fails, so it's a thief-like ability. They have at least a +6 to their dexterity saves, so chances are good that they'll be fine. Each round, they make 3 dagger attacks. The dagger strike is +8 to hit and inflicts 1d4 plus 6 hit points of damage. Also, it can be thrown with that +8 bonus up to 20 feet and up to 60 feet maximum, though rolling with disadvantage, but still keeping that +8 to hit bonus. I think it is perfectly logical that coming from a toxic and twisted landscape, they would most certainly apply vicious poisons to their dagger blades. To make it really interesting, have some Quicklings with damaging poison, others with paralytic poison, and some perhaps with a potent psychotropic goop. Do they race by and throw slippery oil on the ground? Do they throw alchemist fire? Do they run around and around trailing long, strong twine that snares and entangles the feet? Certainly you can use all sorts of tactics like that. In previous editions, the Quickling is not only fast and vicious, they're also very hard to see as they move through any sort of cover. If they move and stop suddenly in cover, they are effectively invisible. So if you wish to increase the challenge rating further, perhaps invisibility is a good option. For some added fun, have them mounted on giant wasps. There are all sorts of ways to involve Quicklings in your games. They're fairly elite scouts, spies, and assassins for fey powers and evil mages, or even evil druids. As long as the tasks that they are given ultimately benefit themselves and their extended families, they're on board with causing mischief and mayhem. Occasionally they will venture too far into the mundane world and become stranded there, which they absolutely hate, to the point that they may even seek help returning to the Feywild. They may be captured and exploited by those even less ethical than themselves, who view them as little more than living magical components. For example, their bones may be needed to be ground up for the ink used to write a scroll of haste. Their blood could form the base ingredient of a potion of speed. Also, Quicklings are very aware of their mortality and will likely go to extreme lengths just on the rumour that some means exists to expand their lifespan. So definitely a fun fey sub-race, quite a contrast to the peaceful little brownies. Just a reminder, if you've not subscribed already, feel free to do so, and be sure to hit that like button and notification bell as I upload from the other side of the world sometime in your future. For access to all the scripts and 1 week advanced access to these videos, consider becoming a patron of the channel on Patreon for a minimum just $1 per month. Join the community on our Discord server, come say hi. Also, if you want to pick up a new video game title at a significant daily discount and help me out in the process, check the daily deal on Chrono, link down below in the video description text. Sorry about my phone going off in the background. As always, thanks for listening. I'll be back with more for you very soon.